I'd like to talk about, or ask questions about fire ant treatment, Queensland. Are you aware of the many complaints that have been made about the administration of the National Fire Ant Eradication? Shall I wait?
Yeah, if you would mind.
Yeah, that's fine.
Senator Fiona Fraser, Threatened Species Commissioner. Could you please repeat the question?
Certainly.
Sorry, excuse me. Division Head, Biodiversity Division.
Are you aware of the many complaints that have been made about the administration of the National Fire Ant Eradication Program in Queensland, which has resulted already in massive environmental damage in the Samford Valley near Brisbane, but also concerns residents in Currumbin, Boona, Gatton and other places in southeast Queensland?
Thank you, Senator. So the Australian Government lead for the National Fire Ant Eradication Program is the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry. So while I'm aware of some of those complaints and broadly on stakeholder interest in this really important issue, some of those more detailed questions, you may get some more comprehensive responses from that department.
I've been in touch with RRAT and I'm going to be asking questions of them tomorrow for the reasons you just mentioned, but I'd like to continue because this is an environmental matter. It's a catastrophe in the making. Is the aerial dumping of toxic insecticide by helicopter into a creek system a breach of the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act 1999? This is exactly what has happened recently into Dawson Creek and Samford Valley, which I visited and cited, and there's no life in the creek.
So, Senator, I'm not aware of whether that's an issue under the EPBC Act or the specifics of that. What I would say is that the treatments that are used in the fire ant eradication program are specifically targeted to those ants, and they're approved by the APVMA, the Australian Pesticides and Veterinary Medicines Authority, who conduct a very rigorous scientific assessment prior to those approvals.
I've seen what they've done in Dawson Creek in Samford Valley. Just wiped it out. There's nothing moving in the creek. Nothing at all, no life, and we've had similar complaints in other areas. And these things are. I'll continue. Are you aware that independent water testing of the creek showed massive toxic pollution of the local waterways, not due to previous pollutants or other pollutants?
So, Senator, again, I'm not familiar with the details of these issues. They would be best handled by the Agriculture Department.
Will this government halt the funding of the dangerous spraying of chemicals into our waterways until at least an independent environmental risk assessment is completed? I guess that's a question for the Minister.
Senator Roberts, I'll certainly take on notice your concerns in regards to Dawson Creek. What I can say, our government would never want to pollute any particular area without just, with any ill will. I think.
Oh, I've got no doubt of that. No doubt at all.
So I just want to go back to the assertion in your.
There's no assertion, Minister.
Thank you.
No assertion whatsoever. Yeah. All I want to know is, will you stop the funding that's polluting Dawson Creek and other areas until an independent environmental risk assessment is completed? Minister,
I can take that on notice.
Thank you. There are, according to residents, serious conflicts of interest with the Queensland government, previous Queensland government. Why was the program, Ms Fraser, allowed to distribute huge quantities of poison into pristine environment with no environmental risk assessment completed beforehand? And why is it funded?
So, Senator, maybe to take your last question first, the program has been funded because red imported fire ants are one of the world's worst invasive ant species. If this species remains unchecked in the southeast Queensland area and beyond, it can cover up to 97% of Australia. It would wipe out huge numbers of birds, of mammals and of other species and cause enormous destruction to agriculture industry throughout Australia, to human health and to infrastructure. So it is possibly one of the worst invasive species Australia has experienced, and the overseas experience is those catastrophic impacts I just spoke about. So hence the commitment of the Australian government and the increased funding commitment by the Australian government to deal with this pest.
Well, Ms Fraser, could you take it on notice to provide us with evidence of what you just said, please, backing it up? Because what we've got is very concerned residents in my home state, and they have talked to people overseas, including people in Texas, and fire ants are now quite common across the United States, and there's very little damage at all. Very little damage.
So
if you could just take it on notice to provide me with the
Senator, I
evidence to back up
don't
your
need to
claim.
take that on notice. We have provided information on that, and including scientific references in our department's submission to the Red Important Fire Ant inquiry, and we also appeared as witnesses at that inquiry as well. So that information is on the public record as part of our submission, but it is much more broadly on the public record and documented in the scientific literature,
Okay,
including
thank you.
for the United States.
Thank you. Are you aware of the damage to the environment that's already occurred through the mismanagement of this program in Queensland?
No, I'm not, Senator.
Are you aware that 21 years ago there was one fire ant nest, and that was at the Port of Brisbane? Now they're in northern New South Wales and all over southeast Queensland.
I'm not familiar
The program's
with these
failing.
issues. Senator, the program has been hugely successful in limiting the spread of invasive of red imported fire ants from the southeast Queensland region. The rate of spread in Australia is minuscule compared to the rate of spread in countries like China and the US, where this species is wreaking havoc.
How does spraying toxic chemicals in valleys with no fire ant nests helping to stop the spread of fire ants?
I'm not aware of those detailed accusations,
Okay.
Senator.
Are you aware of the dead wildlife, including native ants, bees, whole hives, illness to pets, and the massive loss of the marine life yabbies in the creek that has already occurred since baiting commenced?
No, I'm not, Senator.
Are you aware of the threats to human health posed by these chemicals used to treat land?
No, I'm not, Senator, but I am aware of the threats posed to human health by red imported fire ants.
Water tanks. People have water tanks that are not on the reticulated water system. They have water tanks that use their roof. They've got toxins on their roof, spraying over houses with humans in them. This is what's going on.
Again, I'm not familiar with these issues, and I would also not claim that toxic chemicals do not have impacts beyond the target species. However, it's a risk management approach that is taken in dealing with these invasive species.
Does the risk management include sloppy helicopter usage, indiscriminate?
I think, Senator, you're aware I won't know the answer to that question.
Are you aware that S-methoprene is not approved for use in the UK because of high-risk environmental concerns?
No, I'm not, Senator, but I'm not, as I have stated, I'm not an expert in these matters.
What compensation will be made for the damage already caused by this ill-considered program?
I don't know, Senator.
Minister?
I'll take that question on notice, Senator.
Thank you. Why are properties in Queensland and many valleys still being poisoned when it has been established that there are no fire ants present?
So, Senator, a number of your questions go to the implementation of this program, which Ms. Fraser's laid out, Dr. Fraser's laid out, is a program of the Department of Agriculture. We're just not positioned to give you reasonable answers or informed answers on those questions.
This has become an environmental issue, with due respect, Mr Knudsen.
Right, and what
That's why I'm asking questions here as well as agriculture.
But what Dr. Fraser has laid out is here's the environmental risks, et cetera. But in terms of the specifics on the implementation of the program, that's a matter for the Department of Agriculture. I'm just trying to say, Senator, I think your energy and effort would be best focused on.
I've got plenty of energy. Tons of energy.
I have seen that many times, sir.
So what we'll be doing is going into agriculture and holding them accountable as well. But this is an environmental catastrophe
Right.
and a human catastrophe.
And that's why what Dr. Fraser has laid out. We're not saying that there are no impacts from the program, but what we are saying is it's a really significant environmental issue that we're trying to maintain, to contain. And what Dr. Fraser has laid out is that there's a significant evidence that the program has been effective in containing the growth and the spread of red fire ants.
Residents in Queensland would disagree because it's gone from a port. Let me ask the
Roberts,
last
if
two
you want to ask
questions.
your last question.
Last two questions. Why are properties still being poisoned when it's been... OK, we've asked that. Given that eradication of fire ants has failed over the last 30 years in Australia, that's eradication has failed, and spending almost $1 billion, is it time to stop this program and try to find another environmentally safe and responsible management solution?
So, Senator, the program hasn't failed. The program has been successful in curtailing the spread of red imported fire ants by any measure, including against overseas measures of the spread of this species.
Final question, Chair. Which department appropriates the money to Queensland? What monitoring and audit measures are there?
There are extensive monitoring and audit measures. Which department appropriates the money to Queensland? That would be a question for the Department of Agriculture.
It's not your department.
No, it's not.
Thank you, Ms. Fraser. Thank you, Chair.
Dr. Fraser, for the record. Thank you, sir.